And our top story this evening, Kiliabetsi Sileka was just 15 years old when she went missing in November after allegedly telling her friend she was going to meet a blesser in Atteridgeville, west of Pretoria. Sileka was killed at a shack in Brazzaville, an informal settlement west of Pretoria, and dumped in a pit toilet last November. Our reporter Judith Diakanyo filed the story.
Kiliabetsi Sileka wanted the finer things in life, like free data or even an exotic holiday from her new blesser. However, her dreams were short-lived after she was killed, allegedly by a man she met on Facebook who promised her a life of luxury. Kiliabetsi reportedly left her home in Centurion in November and never came back. A month after her disappearance, Sileka's body was found in a pit toilet at Mshongoville, informal settlement in Atteridgeville.
What we did, we traced the deceased's cell phone till we found and then the one who was in possession of the deceased's cell phone. And then after that, and then it led us to the arrest of the suspect.
The details of her death came to light during the court appearance last week Tuesday of 4 men in connection with her death. It's believed the deceased was given a gota with poison. The poison took longer to kill her, so accused number 2 took a rope and strangled her.
What we are seeing on the floor is the remainder of what used to be a pit toilet. The very same pit toilet where Kiliabetsi Sileka was found, killed by suspects very well known to the community of Brazzaville. The residents are so shocked that something like this happened right under their nose.
The community say they now live in fear after discovering people who they came across daily could do something so horrendous.
It shocked us. We are scared. It's people we live with in the community. We are scared.
The 4 accused were refused bail on Wednesday. The magistrate saying that the men lied about their children and personal circumstances, and there were no exceptional circumstances to allow the granting of a bond. Although the 4 accused of murdering Kiliabetsi Sileka have been denied bail, community members have mentioned that the justice system must ensure that they receive life sentence. Community members have also vowed that they will support the family until the end. Judith Diakanyo, ANN7, Pretoria.
Joining us live in studio is Yvette Raphael, Project Manager Advocacy for the Prevention of HIV/AIDS, and Debbie House is a clinical psychologist joining us on the phone line, and Anna van der Werven as an independent criminologist and an expert in criminology. Thank you so much for joining us, Yvette, and good evening to you ladies on the line. But let's just start in studio in the sense that, particularly when it comes to awareness around cybercrime, notwithstanding the social conditions, socioeconomic conditions that young people face, primarily with young girls, that they would be easily lured into material gain or some form of prosperity on Facebook. Do you think there's adequate awareness in this regard?
I don't think there's adequate awareness in South Africa. However, I think what we are doing with the Zazi program at CCI is to make young women aware and teach them about the dangers of growing up and what are some of the things they might fall into by dating somebody older and somebody who has more power than them. Yeah.
Especially somebody that you meet on Facebook. I mean, this could be a fraudulent account. You don't know the background or profile of this particular person. So, Debbie, what is it that young people would be looking for, and especially that would put them in line of danger on social media, in that they want some prosperity or even fame or just a sense of belonging?
And validation and social standing, but unfortunately, because their needs aren't being met on an inner level, in a true, coherent and authentic way, then they have to turn to distractions and outer illusions, and then all these kind of distractions of outer illusions become very enticing, but then they still are very unfulfilling, which leads to a lot of disappointment and disaster eventually, like in the case of this child.
It's really so tragic. Giliabetsi Sileka, 15 years old, accepted a friend request on social media and subsequently ended up in a pit toilet in Brazzaville outside of Pretoria. Anna, as a criminologist, what kind of red flags should people be aware of, particularly when you communicate with somebody on a virtual platform?
Can you hear me? It is very, very dangerous because you don't know what you're dealing with. And so people, young people, especially young women, must really be made aware of the dangers of dating online and meeting people that you really don't know at all. And it can be so alluring, you know, all the promises they make. And I think youngsters don't really realize what dangers it involves.
I mean, we've only seen the example of the so-called Facebook rapists and convictions in that regard. And maybe you can give us an indication of how many of these cases have been successfully convicted, primarily also the fact that the forensic would have to be on point to ensure that the highest convictions can be attained.
Yes, you know, it can take a long time to investigate a matter like that. And it's not something that can be heard in a court very, very soon. It takes a long time. And it can also be difficult to trace a person like that. So it is extremely dangerous behavior. And I think prevention is better than cure in this case. Young people must be made aware of the dangers of transactional sex and yes.
Yeah, we have Yvette in studio from the Advocacy for the Prevention of HIV/AIDS, and we know that the HIV contraction is very prevalent in young people and primarily girls as well, notwithstanding that the social conditions can also be dire and lead to desperation to want to find a sense of comfort elsewhere. So how then do you empower young people that already have to assume roles of adulthood in child-headed families or where there isn't a support structure?
With the Zazi program and the work that we do in communities is going out to young people and young people who are in these situations and talking to them about being an empowered young person, being a young person that stands up for yourself and know your situation. I think a lot of our country's problem is a lot of young people are left at their own demise. We do not understand how deep the issue of child-headed households is, and children just raise themselves. We buy them gadgets, they have access to internet, they have access to the cell phones, like you say, Facebook, WhatsApp, but who monitors their discussions online? Who monitors what are some of the messages that they receive? I think we put too much burden on young people. I think older people should stand up and form some kind of protection around these young people who are left at this huge demise with men and older men, going after them because they are vulnerable.
Yeah, and I mean, Debbie, again, when you on Facebook or in social media, there is that fear of missing out and wanting to be relevant, to be popular. So when somebody shows you kindness or they like a comment that you made, it somewhat validates you. But somehow we also assume that you can trust whoever you're speaking to on social media. And again, with this case, we don't see the outcry from communities, in the sense of calling for more activism, calling for better protection when it comes to social media. Why is that?
Because also, as you say, it's very difficult to discern, and especially for a child. But even on the social context, a lot of people are also don't have those kind of tools of how to actually implement the change. So they often themselves are also fall prey to illusions themselves. So the whole thing is perpetuated because of the adults and the children. Even adults themselves are often very confused as to how to discern. And often they get betrayed and let down and disappointed and hurt. Because the unconscious mind for all people, whether you're an adult or a child, has the logic of a child. And a child doesn't know about good and bad. It assumes that the whole world is good. So adults and children often have the same kind of logic on an unconscious level, but it makes it very difficult for all individuals to discern. Even adults themselves will actually go and look for love and validation in places that are actually illusions. It's a global thing, not just limited to children, it's the adults as well.
I know we've seen cybercrime and identity fraud, etc., people losing millions on the social media. But we're also taking your calls at home on 011-542-2186 on how to deal with, or rather empowering young people adequately enough to face the challenges of this internet era that we live in. And just for the community as well, I mean, there has to be some intervention. Even when Gileabetsi responded to this Facebook post, she then told a friend that she's going to meet her, bless her, and no further details there. The message of making sure that you are, or at least somebody knows where you are, that you leave a forwarding number, or that if anything were to happen, there is at least somebody that would be concerned for you. Do you think, as Yvette was saying, that children are just left to their own device and end up being vulnerable to predators?
Yes, it's really important to take measures, especially if a girl goes out with or has a date with someone that she doesn't know well, to excuse me, to have a cell phone with her and to tell people where that she's going and when she's expecting back home. But it's still a very, very dangerous thing to do, to go out with someone you doesn't know. And it's actually better if you don't know the person to go out in a group, not to go out alone with a person that you don't know.
Yeah, and Debbie, sorry, Anna. Do you think this would deter any other young person? As you were saying, it's not only exclusive to young people, that we all are vulnerable depending on what it is that you put out there. In this particular case, she had certain requirements, that she likes nice things, she wanted data, and she wanted essentially a man to provide for her. That in itself then opens up the floodgates, as it were, for predators. Hi, Debbie.
Yes, that's right. Because, yes, it does make them always look out and go for those illusions. So ideally, the intervention on a social level needs to be able to educate people of how to discern and how not to fall for these kind of trappings that are so easily enticing for a child. But also it lends on the parents to be able to also cater for the child's needs as well emotionally, not just financially, because often they look for financial illusions because it's trying to fulfill an emotional gap or a hole in their heart or on their soul. So that in itself is a spiritual dilemma where they're not getting their needs met on a much deeper level.
Okay, and I think if it depends also how far your reach goes, your footprint, because if it is in remote areas where there isn't access necessarily or connectivity, that those kids would be again sidelined or not getting the adequate support.
Yeah, our programs reach mostly some of the most rural areas in Mpumalanga, in Limpopo, and I think the awareness around what you post. I think a lot of times we think it's just people luring young people, but also what you post. When you post a desperate message as a young person or as a person, you become a victim to somebody who looks out for that kind of person. How do I support this person? How do I help? They know you exactly. They've been following you. They know your moods, and they just know when to go in and offer you those things, comfort, love, and all kinds of things. So I think it's time that we empower young people or help them through this process on how to deal with social media, how to post things, how to go on Twitter and vent. What do you vent about? Do you vent about everything, or are you just basically making yourself vulnerable as well?
And Debbie, I mean, I don't even know if there are numbers necessarily available. Of course, these would be determined by the police data on cases that are reported. This one came to our attention, but there could be so many others that are lurking there collecting dust because, one, the child has gone missing and has perhaps not even been reported, and so the case would rest. So how should this message be used as young people as a deterrent and a warning not to trust everything you see on social media?
Are you referring to me?
Yes, Anna, you might as well take it. I think Debbie's line is a bit distorted there.
Yes.
Go ahead. Anna?
Yes.
Yes. No, I'm saying, would this be a deterrent for young people seeing, Kiliabetsi's demise at the hands of a purported blesser, and she ended up losing her life? Should this be a warning, or is it something that would perpetuate because, again, it's not necessarily policed?
Yes, it should be a warning, but it is very difficult for young people. They are so vulnerable and still so innocent that they don't realize that the way people, these blessers portray themselves, it's a bluff. It's not true, and it can lead actually to their own death. It's a very dangerous thing, and the parents have a responsibility to see that they must know what their children are busy doing. If they have access to internet, so they must know what they look at and what they are actually doing on their computer, so that they can warn their children. But sometimes the parents are not aware of what their children are doing. It's sort of secret.
And I just hold on the line. Leon from Mpumalanga, thanks for your call. Good evening to you. And what's your question or comment?
Yes, how are you, ma'am?
I'm well, thank you.
I'm okay. You know what? I was just listening to one of a radio station, and which means you had a similar topic. So, according to my view, as a parent, you need just to monitor all you must monitor all the network. I mean, referring to WhatsApp, all the whatever, all the Facebook like that. So you may find that some other kids may find maybe at night, say for example, maybe they're going to school. You must take all the cell phone, put aside, and must make sure that as a parent, you must be there, must be closely there. It mustn't just leave it like that, but you must make sure that as a parent, make sure that you monitor each and every cell phone. So something which I realized, most of our kids, most of the problems based at our parents, but not based at the children. So being as a parent, we do have a big role to play there. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, Leon, thanks so much for that. But I mean, in an ideal world, there'll be the nucleus of the family, which is dual parents. But we know that reality is not always the case, where there is a guardian or somebody to look after their kids. I just want to go back to, in terms of empowering, particularly young girls, in that if it's too good to be true, it's likely harmful for you. Whether that comes across, or whether we've created this materialism culture, instant gratification, that if I were to just offer myself as a young person, there's a blesser, authentic one, who's willing to receive me.
I think for young people and the young women in South Africa and all around the world is so fake, and it's a constant fight between your reality and what people portray on social media, or what people portray as something that's good. So with our programs, what we want to do is ensure young people understand their own situation and be okay with being an orphan and receiving just your social grant, but having a bigger picture in mind. What am I going to be in the future? What is this that I'm looking out for? And if I do put myself at risk and go out and do these things, what are the consequences? I just think our young people are not aware enough of the consequences of their actions, of going after things that they cannot afford, of being in a relationship with a man much older and with so much power that they can actually abuse you. So that kind of awareness comes out all the time in our trainings where we do the Zazi programs in the communities.
Yeah, but Debbie, what does it say as a society if we've even romanticized the idea of having a blesser, and it's not something that we scorn up, or rather that we condemn. It's something that just happens. It's become part of the societal fabric. What does it say? Oh, Debbie is gone, I believe. But Anna, just to you, and I'll give that to Yvette as well. What does it say? Is this a microcosm of what society is about? That the moral fiber has decayed. There's erosion of family values, etc. Anna.
I think it definitely plays a role. That we have sometimes children that, or a child that's the head of the family, and they are so vulnerable and in need of education. And in this, I think the schools also play a very important role to equip children with the knowledge of how dangerous the world is outside. And so I think it's very important to give the proper guidance to the youngsters and make them aware of the
Yeah, okay, let's take a call at Sepiso in Germiston. Good evening to you. What's your perspective or question?
Good evening, Cindy. Yes, actually the problem here, I blame our government, because when this thing started, our government take it slowly. I remember one of the day when Nkosazana interviewed this guy from I think it's outside, not South African guy. Then they were questioning him why you said there is this blesser. Then he didn't answer. But now government, they let foreigners come and do whatever they like. Now look what's happening now. It's very horrific to find out young kids is being killed like this. And now when government leaving everyone just doing this thing on the internet, then it's going to be a problem at the end, because government, they just let everyone do whatever they want in South Africa. Yeah. And my problem is that why government don't act on this thing of blesser.
All right, Sepiso, but I think it's disingenuous to say it's just foreigners that perpetuate violent contact crimes. But your point taken. Debbie, I believe you're back with us in the sense that, as a society, what does this say if we are so materialistic and competitive in the stuff that we acquire, which is then transferred to as a value system to children, that this is the only way that you can be validated. Your sense of belonging is based on what you have.
It's a very important point. And I think the emphasis actually needs to be taken off the children themselves, because children do learn from the role models. And unfortunately, our role models, the parents themselves or the caretakers, they also fall prey to symbolically the same thing as blessers. Because a lot of wives they will financially be dependent on their husband, even though they're very unhappy. They're almost selling themselves and allowing themselves to perpetuate abusive cycles because it's their survival is dependent on it. And so those older values of the male and the female have been undermined, where often those kinds of enticements are happening within parents as well.
Okay. Sorry, Debbie, we're fresh out of time. If just last word from you in terms of contact numbers and support groups and what you need to look out for as a young person on social media.
For us, the Zazi program, we have a Facebook page where a lot of young people can go and talk about their situations and talk about issues that affect them. It's at Team Zazi on Twitter, and it's the Zazi Facebook page, as well as our office number 012-366-9300, where you can get in contact with somebody in our office with regards to this. But also, I think, I don't know if it's Debbie that mentioned, it's who demonstrates or who models this blessed thing. And I think our government is not doing enough, and our government at some point modeled this blessed thing as being okay with being government officials that are glitz and glamour.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. The number 012-366-9300. That's 012-366-9300 for the Zazi program, or you can go at Team Zazi and their Facebook page, Zazi, as well. Thanks indeed for joining us. We take a quick ad break. We'll see you in a short bit.